I present to you, ... But before we begin, I kindly request that if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please do so. And if you enjoy the video, don't forget to like and share it, and leave a comment to tell us how we can improve our videos. So let's move on to the story. I lay for a long time observing the enemy's movement. After the martyrdom of that saintly man, they had become a bit reckless. From what I overheard, I gathered that the ones who martyred Yusuji were from their own commando platoon. However, before being martyred, the saint managed to shoot 5 of them. 4 were confirmed down, and the 5th was grazed by a bullet near the head. After resting near the mosque for a while, I set out again. Had Yusud not taken the bullets from my sniper rifle, I might have taken out several of them, but a pistol couldn't do much at that range. Even so, he saved my life, and that was more important than taking a few shots. When you're in such mental states, it's not about gain or loss anymore. I reached the spring without any confrontation. After quenching my thirst, I filled both water bottles and placed them in my small pack. I then moved towards a cluster of bushes about a furlong away, where I could hide, because today the enemy search teams were scouring the area, and we were supposed to stay put. Encountering a party would open up a whole new conflict. The bushes were thick, but from there, I could see the spring clearly. As dusk approached, I saw a few men from the enemy side filling water and joking around. For a moment, they felt relief. After a crisis, as if they had taken down a dangerous enemy, one who had already killed a dozen of their comrades, I stared at them blankly. After finishing at the spring, they resumed their positions. After drinking from the spring myself, my thirst subsided a bit. I took out the packet of cigarettes Yusud Siddiq had placed in my pack. He had handed over everything to me without hesitation. He had already decided to die. But during our last conversation, he hadn't given the slightest hint of that. He must have made that decision earlier, perhaps when I refused to leave his side. The story he told me about his own Yusud Hashem wasn't just to share the past. It was to mentally prepare me for my own death. During training, he shared many things, but the most important story came when he had already chosen to walk his Ustad's path. That night, I wrestled with Yusud Siddiq's memories in the bushes. Near dawn, I took off my shirt and walked toward the spring again, not sure if I would find water or not. I filled the bottles for the next night and resumed my path. I turned on the walkie-talkie, but the previous frequency was silent. I changed the channel, but there was still nothing of note, just the usual patrol chatter. A few posts were reporting in, all clear at Sector 20. I didn't want to take the same route back. I dived under the base of Sector 20 and exited stealthily. I didn't try to enter the jungle immediately. By sunrise, I had moved about 2 kilometers past Sector 20. As daylight came, I was fully concealed in my ghillie suit, blending in with the bushes. The stream ahead was getting narrower. On one side was a hilly path, on the other a dense forest and steep rocky cliffs. As the tree cover decreased on the right, I re-entered the forest. The stream curved again. There were only a few puddles, and this was also the route I would take back. I used my binoculars to scan the nearby village, but saw no movement. I opened the map again to recheck the enemy's post locations. Up ahead was the Sadr post, manned by 15 to 20 soldiers. About half a kilometer on either side of it were 2 more posts, each with around 10 guards. I needed to take the path that moved right past the Gurjar post, and then carefully cross enemy lines to reach Pakistan's first post, Ring Control. During our initial crossing, a local guide helped us cross the border and then returned. But now, on the way back, I was alone, and had to find my way myself. I packed the map, whispered a prayer, and entered the stream. There were thorny bushes and many large rocks, perfect for hiding. I kept walking without shoes. I knew I had to cross the Sadr post at night. About a kilometer before the post, I found a ridge to rest and wait for nightfall. I ate and laid down to rest. It was a spot where detection was highly unlikely. By sunset, I prepared myself. At that hour, guards are usually distracted with dinner or shift changes, and most importantly, I knew the perfect moment was approaching. I had to cover a distance of approximately 1 kilometer, so I decided to begin the journey early in the evening only. Then could the distance through this hilly terrain be covered. I kept moving, taking cover behind large rocks and the occasional tree along the path. As soon as I passed through the area of the Sadrishi post, my pace picked up. About an hour to an hour and a half later, I reached near the Gurjar post. From there, the ravine continued straight ahead, but I turned slightly to the right and continued moving. However, my speed slowed significantly again. Due to the lack of oxygen, it's difficult to move quickly in this area, especially when climbing uphill. Around midnight, I reached the enemy's last post, called Left Chedian. This area was particularly dangerous because such posts, being right in front of the enemy, were guarded by highly alert soldiers, and Indians, in this matter, are very nervous. Their guards usually don't get enough rest because of fear. In contrast, Pakistani army soldiers are more relaxed because of their bravery, Asterisk, after ascending further and reaching a high point, I looked at the map. According to it, the left Chudayan post was about 200 yards away. I took out my night vision sight from my small pack and looked through it, but from that distance, I could only see the post itself and not much activity around it. I proceeded further. This time, I paused before reaching the next song's post and took cover behind a rock to observe it. Asterisk, the post was built behind a ridge on the Pakistani side, making it nearly impossible to see from across the border. However, the 2 guard bunkers made for sentries were clearly visible. Using the night sight, I surveyed the surrounding area. After reconnoitering the post's vicinity, I found a ravine beginning nearby. But traveling through it was risky because such paths are often mined with landmines. The enemy hopes that anyone walking there would step on one. Asterisk, taking such a risk requires a lot of courage. Landmines are no joke, they can end lives in an instant. I once saw a comrade martyred right before my eyes. He mistakenly stepped into an area laced with mines, and as soon as his foot pressed one, the mine exploded. He was thrown backward and hit his head on a rock with great force. Later, we were able to retrieve his body only with great difficulty. Asterisk, after assessing the situation, I realized that I could not bypass the post. To the right was a steep slope, and without climbing equipment, it was impossible to go over. To try another route, I would have to backtrack, which would be extremely risky within enemy territory. Reaching the requested point, I decided to take the risk. Asterisk, once again, I started observing the enemy's defenses. It was about 2 minutes to 2 a.m., and I hoped the sentries were due for a shift change soon. My watch showed Indian time, and since we're an hour ahead, their watches would soon hit 1 a.m. The benefit of this timing is that sentries change every 2 hours, and usually 2 guards are on duty at the same time. Their shifts are staggered from 5 to 7, and the other from 6 to 8 XO, that both are not alert at the same time, and can rest alternately. Asterisk, soon I saw that my assumption was correct. From this spot, a soldier could be seen walking towards the right bunker. He had probably just been awakened by the existing sentry. Until the returning guard took his post, another guard emerged and started patrolling. At that moment, 3 guards were awake. Once the new guard returned to the room, I began inching forward again. Asterisk, the only fear in my heart was about the dogs. If dogs were present at the post, they could alert the enemy with their barking. Although I hadn't heard any barking so far, the fear still lingered. I moved cautiously. My night vision sight was still attached to my eye. Asterisk, the sentry was patrolling. Lazily at one point, he turned his head to look around, and even turned on his flashlight once or twice to show that he was alert. However, he always directed the torchlight towards the ravine side. I lay flat on the ground as soon as I saw him. The real alertness is usually expected from the front bunkers, which is why he didn't seem too tense. Asterisk, instead of crawling, I had to shuffle forward while sitting, because the rocky terrain made crawling painful. Sharp stones would dig into my knees and legs. Moreover, the movement could cause noise, which might alert the sentries. Asterisk, now I was about 10. At that moment, I had just enough time left. I had already prepared the grease and tucked it into my belt. Holding the large knife in my hand, I waited for the sentry to turn. As soon as he turned, I stood up and quietly started walking behind him. When I got close enough, he sensed the coming danger and tried to turn around, but I instantly lunged at him, covering his mouth with my hand. He struggled to do something, perhaps to alert others, but before he could, I had already pressed the pistol against his temple and pulled the trigger. A soft thud sounded, and a hole opened up in his skull. His body jerked, then went limp. I gently laid him on the ground. The first phase of the mission was completed successfully. Asterisk, I checked the time. It was 3:20 a.m. The next sentry was due to take over in 10 minutes. I quickly dragged the body aside, removed the grease, and covered it with the sentry's own blanket. I also took his torch and kept it with me. Asterisk, by 3:30 a.m., with my heart pounding, I approached the left post. I had stored the night vision scope back into the small pack. I wrapped the blanket in such a way that even my face was hidden. Just as I reached the door of the post, the sentry inside called out impatiently, clearly eager to jump into a warm quilt after his 2-hour shift. He turned his face and said, "Man, you're finally here." Those were the last words from his mouth. A single bullet from my Glock pistol pierced his skull like a window pane cracking. He collapsed instantly. Asterisk, the post wasn't very big, so his body knocked down 2 rifles that had been leaning against the wall, creating a considerable noise. A voice called out jokingly from the neighboring post, "Banged a bit hard, didn't you, trying to break the post open?" Even though the distance between the 2 posts was 20 meters, the sound of the rifles falling had reached him. Asterisk, I didn't respond and stepped out to head to the second post. The voice called again, "Hey, Baba, everything all right?" Clearly he had heard my footsteps. This time I responded as always with just one answer, "Yes," but as he peeked out, I was already right in front of him. I turned on the torch and fired into his skull as well. He collapsed, his head hanging outside the post while his legs stayed inside. Stepping over his body, I entered. Asterisk, I turned on the torch and took stock. 2 rifles, some garlic cloves, and a Vikram-mounted weapon were in place. In the viewing hole in front of the post, I spotted a thermal imaging night vision device. I turned it on and stepped outside. From there, our own post was about 490 meters away in a straight line. However, due to the terrain, one had to loop through Left Chutian and head toward ring control, which made the journey almost 1,000 meters. Through the thermal scope, I spotted 5 of our soldiers patrolling. The scope works like binoculars and shows a black and white thermal view. Every living creature appears either black or white. Time was of the essence. I slung the thermal scope around my neck and started descending toward the plains in front of the hill. The slope was unstructured and risky in the dark, so I boldly turned on the torch. I knew the Pakistani soldiers wouldn't dare venture this far, and I was right. A few seconds after I turned it on, a signal torch from ring control responded. They were confirming if the person approaching was friendly. I signaled back with my torch 2 or 3 times to show that I was aware of their presence. After descending nearly 100 meters, I reached an open field where landmines had been laid, and the area cordoned off with barbed wire. Yes, according to international conventions, when a country lays mines, it must clearly mark the area with barbed wire. But our enemy is lowly and dishonorable. They don't follow any such rules. In mountainous areas, many border sections are still mined. The enemy places landmines to prevent infiltration by humans or, sometimes, even animals step on them by accident. To bypass these mines, I had to circle around songs. On the left side of the boundary, nature had conveniently scattered large rocks, making it impossible to plant mines there. I walked carefully along those stones to advance. In front of the minefield, there were some anti-personnel barriers, like the ones seen on the border. I pulled out the wire cutter from my small pack, snipped the wires, cleared a path, and moved ahead. I avoided using my flashlight, as there were already 2 torches visible from the ring control post. It was clear that the sentry had informed the guard commander of my approach. After clearing the last set of obstacles, I was only 50 meters from ring control when a loud voice called out, "Halt!" The command was loud and firm. I raised my hands and stayed still. The sentry must have observed me and confirmed that I was unarmed. As I clapped my hands, he said Badal, which was the password for the night. I remained silent. As I didn't know the password, he repeated, Badal. If I had known the correct response that night, I would have easily passed. But I was clueless. On border duty, soldiers use code phrases to identify friend from foe, at night typically words that describe the sky, like Badal cloud and Bijali lightning. The sentry speaks the first word, and the approaching person is expected to reply with the corresponding code. In addition to the password, a numerical challenge is also used. For example, if 7 is the code figure, the sentry might say 3, and the respondent must say 4 to complete the number. When I didn't answer, the sentry asked again, "Who are you?" Calmly. I replied, "Didn't recognize me." I added, "I'm tired of standing here. Let me come closer, and you'll see." Without getting a clear view, he ordered, "Advance." So, with my hands raised high, I walked forward. Just 2 meters away, he stopped me again, and the second soldier with him stepped forward and began searching me. He took off my sniper rifle, placed it aside, and then took my small pack, thermal imaging scope, and everything I was carrying. After finishing the search, I asked, "Can I lower my hands now?" The man holding me at gunpoint replied softly, "Go ahead." I thanked him, lowered my hands, and then heard firing from the Left Chutian post. I told the sentry to take cover, but before I could finish, he had already ducked behind a post. The man who had searched me turned out to be the guard commander. He took me inside a room, which was the post commander's office. As we entered, he saluted. Inside, a Petromax lantern glowed. The post commander looked at me carefully, then gestured for me to sit. He then turned to his aide and said, "Ustad Akram, get tea and refreshments." "Right away, sir," the aide replied and stepped out. After offering me some basic hospitality, the commander asked me to introduce myself. I explained everything in detail. By the time I was done, the tea and halwa had arrived. I was exhausted, but relaxed. The post commander picked up the field telephone and began relaying my details to the battalion headquarters. Within an hour or so, my information was confirmed. The commander hugged me warmly, patted my back, and then arranged a bed for me in his own room. He told me to rest and left. From the direction of Africa enemy post, I could still hear gunfire. Clearly, the enemy wasn't digesting the loss of their 3 men, but I was now among my own. I lay down on the bed peacefully, knowing I was safe.